Welcome to today's Diamond Mentor Moment. I'm so happy to be with you on this beautiful Wednesday. And we are still in Black History Month. Of course, every month is Black History Month, American History Month. And I am excited to do just something a little bit different. As opposed to just a short snippet, I'm going to go give you a segment of the keynote that I normally give. But I was able to honor the life of one of our wonderful African American entrepreneurs, thought leaders of the 20th century, Miss Fannie Mae Duncan. I was able to give this keynote in January in Colorado Springs, where she was. And so I'm going to go through and we are going to just learn about her life and how her life really just broadcasts and exemplifies creative thinking and prismatic leadership. And I'll give you the background on what that is and really just what are our leaders looking for now that she harbored back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s as well. So let's go on with the presentation. All right. So she started the Cotton Club. Her family moved from the South. There was an incident in the South that just really just shook them up really, really bad. And so they were like, we have to get out of this area and up into the North. And they finally ended up in Colorado Springs area. She was either born there or just really, really young there. So she didn't really have a lot of the issues that her other older siblings and her parents really experienced during that time in the South in the late 1800s and early 1900s. And so in high school, she was just really ambitious and she was really creating different things. And she was very curious on how to run certain businesses and things like that. And so when she became of age, she really started doing odd jobs and she was working as a ice cream attendant at one of the government places for the soldiers in Colorado Springs. And she was doing so well, she got an opportunity to actually lead the fountain shop, right? And the owner of the shop was highly impressed. And she really thought, wait, if I can make this much money for this government entity, why can't I do it for myself? And so she really just took a risk and she got a loan and she really knew how to make connections with different types of people from different walks of life. And she got a loan and she started the Cotton Club. Yes, there is a Cotton Club in New York made famous by certain wonderful acts like Duke Ellington and his band and other acts in Harlem, and she wanted that same type of feel in Colorado Springs. So let's talk about her famous phrase. Her famous phrase is "Everybody is welcome." So we're going to talk about how she really exemplified creative thinking, intercultural competence, and how she was really your inclusive leader. For those of you who don't know my work, it's intercultural creativity, and we base it off the 7 gems of intercultural creativity because our logo is the diamond. So everything is gem and diamond related. And we live in a VUCA environment, right? Volatile, uncertain, complex. And they're actually saying it's no longer just VUCA, it's a Basie environment. Basie stands for brittle. Companies that are here today are gone tomorrow. It's like that fast. And this is causing a level of anxiousness. This is why self-awareness and just this empathetic and intellectual humility type of leadership is really taking hold because everything is so brittle, causing a level of anxiousness. And things are in a non-linear world right now. So the way things used to be, very set, very organized, very predictable, more or less, not so much now. And that's just, it's incomprehensible. So the leadership skills that Fannie Mae Duncan exhibited back in the early 20th century, we need them now. And so we need prismatic leadership. So I'm going to go over her life in depth and show you how she was a prismatic leader. And then how can we incorporate into our leadership? We have the 7 gems of intercultural creativity, which fuel prismatic leadership. Creative thinking. What is that? It's not just the arts. The arts are a part of it, but creative thinking sits on several skills, such as divergent thinking, your ability to reframe situations, your ability to combine different ideas, especially different ideas from different fields and different disciplines, your ability to make unusual associations, and metaphorical thinking. So we are moving forward with the definition of creative thinking is the process of problem finding and problem solving with relevance, value, and novelty, right? And so, what did this look like within her life? So, intercultural creativity is cultural development and creative thinking in once. And your ability to have a high cultural competence ability is your ability to observe similarities and differences with complexity, right? Let's walk through her life and see how she did that so well. And it's all based on brain research. What did she know? Not necessarily about the brain, because fMRIs and all the technology we have now wasn't available during her adulthood. But I think she intuitively knew what was going on in the brains of the people who she was trying to influence for a united good and to move the community forward. And so celebrating Black History Month, celebrating Miss Miss Fannie Mae Duncan from Colorado Springs, we are looking at gem number one. A prismatic leader is a growth mindset leader, right? Even a prismatic mindset leader. What does it look to have a growth mindset? It's that you know that culturally development, that process, it's a choice, right? You have to choose to put yourself in uncomfortable situations. Fannie Mae Duncan did that. Her curiosity, another person I talk about a lot is George Washington Carver, who was born enslaved in 1865, right, on the tail end of slavery, and ended up becoming a professor at two universities, ended up just really moving our agricultural advancement forward. Both Miss Fannie Mae Duncan and George Washington Carver were driven by putting themselves in new situations, right? They were looking for opportunities to develop their creative thinking and develop their cultural development, which means their ability to connect with people from different lived backgrounds, different ethnicities, genders, social economic situations, just different languages. What does that look like for you and I to be intentional about putting ourselves in situations where we have to develop culturally and connect culturally? And Fannie Mae Duncan, she was very creative. She was always looking for problems to solve, right? Looking at our definition, creative thinking is the process of problem finding and problem solving. She was finding problems. She was like, why isn't there a place for teens to hang out? Not only did she create the Cotton Club in Colorado Springs, she created another fountain hangout for teens who couldn't go into areas where they serve alcohol. She created a hair salon, a barber shop, a pool hall, and a record shop. She was always looking to meet the needs of the community that she was in. Creative thinking, it's a choice. You have to take risks, right? You have to be a visionary. You have to use your imagination. And the brain loves comfort. The brain loves routine. So it takes extra energy for the brain to do both, to connect creatively and to connect culturally with people who aren't a part of your normal sphere. And so she really took in the intention to grow in both of those areas. Intercultural creativity shows how cultural competence is directly influencing creative thinking and vice versa. And it's an expensive choice, like I just said. The brain needs to use more energy to do that. So with the first gem, Fannie Mae Duncan, she was a prismatic leader because she was a growth mindset person. She intentionally put herself in situations where she had to grow, she had to learn, and she had to deal with risk management, not risk avoidance, risk management appropriately. Our second gem is the empathetic way, and she really showed a lot of empathy with her ability to connect with people. I talk about this story, and I just actually posted about it 2 days ago, of how when Adele, the singer, was reunited with a former teacher. And you see Adele's face. She hasn't seen this teacher in 20 years, but Adele's face shows what the neuroscience now proves. And I just posted that article in my post 2 days ago, that your brain connects with and learns better from people who make that empathetic connection. Your brain will remember people who look to connect, people who look to connect along multiple facets, right? They're concerned about different areas of your life, and they're empathetically able to shift and put themselves in your perspective. Look at Adele's face. 20 years haven't seen this person, and that's the reaction she has, because Miss McDonald, her former teacher, connected. And so in my keynotes and in my book as well, I say connection leads, then creativity follows, then content follows. So what's leading in your organization? What does that look like? This is just a picture of the area. And Fannie Mae Duncan knew the power of connection even when opposition was there. And her opposition was the chief of police, Bruce. They call him Dad Bruce, right? Mr. Bruce, who was the chief of police of Colorado Springs at that time. And let me show you a video of what she had to deal with.
Was called, the chief of police called her in and said he heard she was mixing colors and she couldn't be doing that.
He said, you got white people, you got Mexicans, you got black people, and you got everything in the rainbow in there. I said, I have? And he said, yes. He said, you cannot do that here. I said, you didn't tell me you sold me some black license. I said, you charged me as much for my license as staying at the Manhattan. He said, yes. I say, well, the color, you didn't tell me to check for color.
All right. And so to start an establishment and to wanted to be making sure that she had everyone welcome, right? She doesn't mind where you come from, your background. You just had to be 21. That's the only limit that she had. And of course, because of that time, right? This is the early, I forgot, the early 30s or so. Because of that time, or maybe the early 40s, everything was so segregated. And so even enjoying music and entertainment. And the reason why I bring this up is because Fannie Mae really worked on her ability to connect with people that were from different demographics. And how do you influence people to see the vision that you see? So let me add this back to the presentation. So she made sure that everybody was welcome, even though she faced opposition from the chief of police and other people who had power, who were trying to shut her down, because she was mixing people together, which were not normally mixed. But she knew what the neuroscience now proves. If you want people to connect, if you want people to unite and to be able to move towards your inclusive goals, you have to give them experiences together. She knew that the brain needs to synchronize, right? Dr. Michael Platt out of the Wharton Business School talks about neural synchronization. And what we understand now is the arts, especially music, people who are enjoying music together, their brains are synchronizing. People who are singing together, people who are dancing together and moving in unison, their brains are synchronizing. Brains that are synchronizing automatically, right, have a higher probability of cooperating together, collaborating together, taking the time to see from another perspective, see the other person's perspective. There's a concept called in-grouping and out-grouping that your brain automatically does upon meeting someone within the first 10 seconds. If your leadership and your organization gives your groups opportunities to allow people to in-group, right, to get their brains synchronized together, you will see an increase in collaboration, in connection, and be able to be more creative, even abrasive creativity. People are able to perspective shift more and see where other people are coming from, give other people a sense of agency, and understand that people have something called a theory of mind, right? They have thoughts and motivations from their own perspective. Fannie Mae knew this. Without even fMRIs on the scene, she knew I needed to get their brains synchronized. I needed to provide experiences for them. She knew about the brain without even knowing about the brain. Brilliant woman. And so this next gem, this second gem, is she was empathetic and she was open-minded to people from different lived backgrounds. All right, my next gem that I talk about more in depth in my book and in my keynotes is cultural observation. Cultural observation. What we know with the research is that exposure, what you are exposed to, right? Culturally growing up, your experience, your school systems, your family systems, any faith-based systems, any hierarchy systems, anything that that provides experiences, affects how you observe, how you hear, how you see, how you take in the world, right? And culture affects observation. Erin Meyer, who is a cultural specialist, she has a wonderful book called The Culture Map, where she says they looked at a research experiment, and they looked at, when I say culture, this time I mean national culture or ethnic culture, but culture can mean so many things. But ethnicity and the national culture, people who looked at an aquarium from the eastern part of the world focused on the background of the aquarium. People who looked at the aquarium from the western part of the world focused on the foreground. So what does that mean? It means where you grew up, and how you grew up affects what you see, affects what you pay attention to. And the brain is all about attention, right? There are billions of dollars floating around trying to get your attention, right? Your attention is gold. Please be very mindful of what you give your attention to. But culture, how you grew up, affects where your attention goes. So keep that in mind. But Fannie Mae Duncan knew this. When she said everybody's welcome, she knew that if I invite people from different lived experiences, if I invite people who have different languages and people who have different ways of seeing things, if I invite those people, they will help me or help one another connect well. They will help one another expand their mind maps, expand their way of thinking. And that is huge. That is huge. Once again, she said, everybody is welcome. Let me press this button and keep going. Awesome. All right. So we are talking about Fannie Mae Duncan, and we are talking about Black History Month and how Fannie Mae Duncan of Colorado Springs, an entrepreneur, a thought leader, a neuroscientist without even knowing she was doing neuroscience, and really a focus on the brain, connecting people and moving her community forward, how she was doing that authentically and what we can learn from her life as well. And so when she started her Cotton Club, and when she's just put on the door, people are asking, hey, can I come in? I know this is predominantly African-American establishment, but I'm a soldier from France, from Japan. I have an American soldier, but I have a wife from a different country. Is she allowed? A lot of places they said no, but in Fannie Mae Duncan's place, she said yes, because she said everybody is welcome. So let's continue with that. And so once again, cultural observation, use all of your senses to observe, be aware of where your attention is going. If you're looking to increase your observation, one easy way is the arts. The arts open your sensory gate. The arts makes your sensory gate more fine-tuned, right? And that's as part of my work. For those of you who are following my work, I am on the mission to prove to corporate America and to remind K-12 that the human being needs exposure to the arts, not just the elite, not just those who can afford it, or if they have perfect grades, then you get to do the arts. Every human being should have access to learn how to read and should have access to learn how to engage and express themselves in the arts. And Fannie Mae Duncan knew this and knew the power of music to unite people. There's also evidence with the brain. Just we're looking at the anatomical connectome, like where the brain is and where things are just situated. But we also look at the functional connectome, meaning which parts of the brain are becoming active at the same time. When you are engaging in the arts, you are engaging in more areas being activated at the same time. Music is very powerful. Movement, right? Your emotional intelligence just increase. And I should do a different one just about music for itself. And so don't forget, the arts have such integrated and underlying strengths that leaders are in dire need of in this future of work, such as emotional intelligence and well-being. Just humming, in your so note, your G, right? Just humming that note just does things to your brain to calm your brain down, releases neurochemicals, right? Relaxes your muscles. Well-being, I believe well-being is highly connected to your artistical journey. Multi-sensory perception, learning flexibility, right? IBM came out with a research paper talking about they need their leaders to have cognitive flexibility. The book of psychological safety, the 4 stages of psychological safety, he talked about companies who have a learning flexibility plan, people who know how to learn well, and translation of ideas. The arts are ways of communicating a musical phrase, communicating a movement phrase. When you know how to communicate with multiple methods, that increases your connectome, your brain connectivity to allow ideas to get back and forth between hemispheres through your corpus callosum, right? This is like the 405 and the 101, right? You want a strong corpus callosum to get those cars back and forth without a lot of traffic. So Miss Fannie Mae Duncan was highly observant. She was always looking ahead for the needs of her community. Her creativity was in response of her observation. That is key, because if you're not observant, it's hard to be creative with something you're not even aware that exists. So how are you improving your observational skills? What does that look like? All right, our next gem is cultural curiosity. If creativity drives innovation, curiosity drives creativity. I love saying that because it's true. Internal curiosity. Sadly, we're in a lot of systems that decrease our curious nature that we were born with. So as adults, how do we increase our curiosity? How do we have creative curiosity, right? I was just in Oklahoma doing a wonderful training. Half of the training was just how do we increase and creatively diversify our ability to think curiously around the topic that we were just discussing. If you look at this woman's life, oh my goodness, her level of curiosity, right? Her and George Washington Carver and a few other people, their ability to innovate was huge. And it's an internal motivation, right? This curiosity was an internal motivation that led them to keep asking questions, to go. And she went up to Denver, right? Because a lot of the acts, Duke Ellington, Louis Armstrong, and she even gave Flip Wilson his start, right? Flip Wilson first performed at her club in Colorado Springs. But if you look at her ability to bring these high-level names to Colorado Springs, because they were already stopping at Denver to perform, and she would go up to Denver and she would just sit in the clubs in Denver and just watch people. She would just watch the waitresses. She would watch their lines, and she would watch the interactions and the systems that these higher clubs had in place. And then she would go back to her own club and replicate them. And she was just curious to see, okay, what are they doing? What are they doing? And how can I integrate it to fit where we are now? She was curious to make connections. She made connections with people who, just the elite of the city. She made connections with the students. She helped her family out. She was curious. She realized that a lot of her acts who were coming from Denver didn't have a place to stay because, once again, the hotels wouldn't serve the Black musicians. So she made enough money to purchase a mansion and turned it into a mini hotel. I love this because instead of losing hope, instead of just throwing in the towel, she looks for creative ways to solve problems. That is a prismatic leader. They can see the hidden colors like a prism. A prism reveals the hidden colors within light, and they see the hidden colors of possibility. They see the hidden colors of gifts and talents within their team members. They're always looking for creative ways to solve problems and to bring the best out of people. So this curiosity really drove her to keep innovating and keep going despite opposition from different people who did not believe that people from different ethnicities should come and listen to music together. You'd be surprised. So that's that. And so I sat down with Dr. Allison Hoistmeister, which is episode 74 on my podcast, the Create and Grow podcast. And she has a doctorate in workplace curiosity. And she says, Janine, if your organizational leaders do not work on their creative curiosity thinking skills, they will be where these logos I'm about to show you were. She said, leadership curiosity is a necessity. And what happens if you are not constantly developing your ability to be internally curious and creatively curious? Your logo will end up on this screen. And I don't know about you, but I'm not trying to have my logo on this screen. So I even have to think, okay, well, with my job and with my services, can I use my imagination? Okay, well, what's coming around the bend? How can I utilize my resources today? And how can I use my imagination and my curiosity to see, okay, well, what does training look like 2 years from now, 5 years from now? Someone told me, one of my mentors, he was like, Janine, do you have your avatar? Do you see yourself giving keynotes while you're in Phoenix and your 3D avatar is giving a keynote in Zimbabwe and in France at the same time? Like, can you imagine that? Because if you can't imagine it, you're not going to work towards it. That internal curiosity isn't going to move you in that direction. And so I love meeting with people who just think differently because they are invigorating my own curiosity as well. And so that's what Fannie Mae did. And so we have our books. They're not called children's books. They're called inner child books because they're for adults to redevelop your inner child skills of creativity, curiosity, and imagination, right? So how do you release your inner curiosity? So Fannie Mae Duncan was highly curious. And part of her curiosity was, how do I get all people from all walks of life to come and enjoy this music, this dancing, this fellowship here? And how do I make just psychologically safe organizations and classrooms in order for people to be curious? What does that look like? So prismatic leaders exhibit humble, which means I don't know everything, curiosity. All right. So our next gem is, and once again, my keynotes are normally like an hour. So I'm just kind of giving you a little taste, and I had to omit a few stories, but here's just a taste of how this woman, who I didn't even know of before I was contracted to do this keynote, just really revolutionized Colorado Springs, but should be known around. She should be as big as Maya Angelou or Oprah. Just what she did during her time. Is Dr. Michael Platt talks about this, the head neuroscientist over at Wharton. He talks about the ability for your brain to be excellent in perspective shifting. What does that look like? And I wanted to bring up Duke Ellington. Now, I won a Duke Ellington fellowship when I was teaching music during my last career as a teacher in K-5. And I got to go see where Duke lived and he played, and just I got to really just walk the steps of Duke Ellington. And here's why Duke Ellington was a genius, or is a genius, because he really exhibited the skills that leadership is looking for today. What he knew to do was to bring together his band, and not to really look at his band from a job description layout. He looked at the unique sounds that everyone was bringing to the group. And he orchestrated, right? He's a piano player, but he wrote, he was a composer as well. He orchestrated their unique sound to come together and to create an entirely unique sound together. If you look at this illustration, you see the colors being mixed. He was a composer of the composed, basically. He was a genius of how do I really not play the piano. He wasn't a player of the piano. He was a player of the band. He really knew how to take different sounds. And this book, by the way, this is a children's book. It is brilliant. And it shows his brilliance of how leaders today can really look at the unique contributions of people. Okay, this person is doing this. And I have an activity that I do during my trainings called the Dimify Your Life, where we look at the hidden elements and the hidden skills that people are not bringing to work because it's not on their job description. So you have a leader who's leading people with all these hidden skills that they have no clue are there. And so it's very difficult for the leader to bring in the essence and the strengths of a lot of their team members because it's not on the job description. And so we got to get past the job description and really be observant. There's that other gem of what people are bringing to the table. So Duke Ellington was a master of this. I have 3 books that talk about how to use music and how to use the genius of jazz musicians for leadership skills. And I'll be doing a talk on that in the future, maybe including it in my next book. And so once again, she did that well. She brought in people from all over the world because Colorado Springs is a army town. So you have people coming in from different places, and really to how do you mix the essence of all these people together in order for a united good? Like, she is basically the microcosm of what our nation needs today. And it started with a sign that she put on outside of her window that said, "Everybody welcome." So like I say, I kept bringing up his name, Dr. Michael Platt, episode 66, if you want to listen to our conversation. And he talks about how the higher you go in status, my C-suite people out there, my managers out there, if you are CFO, CEO, CTO, the higher you go in status, it actually decreases your social brain, right? Like a literal decrease of the brain structure, right? And one way to combat that is to make connections with people from different parts of the company, different demographics, right? Especially ethnicity, gender, and social economic demographics. Because once you go higher in status, your brain basically cuts off people. It's like, I don't need to know them. They can't help me with anything. So just let me forget that they're even there, right? And it does this like automatically. And so great leaders know how to mitigate that, and they intentionally put things in their schedule in order for that not to happen. And there's some people are just born with the ability to just connect on every level, but most of us have to be intentional at working at that. So Dr. Michael Platt says perspective shifting increases your social brain. Let's look at this really quick and hear directly from him.
Things that they need to embrace is from a leader's perspective, one of the most important things that they need to embrace is humility. One quite surprising but fascinating effect that we've seen of kind of thinking you're better than other people, or literally being higher in a hierarchy, like having a really strong hierarchy, is this turns down your social brain network. So it's like, when you're up here, you're basically not taking the perspective of anybody. So I think doing what you can, even if you need to have a hierarchy in place, like sometimes in the military, where you have to have a strong chain of command, you can still embrace the sort of culture of having a flat hierarchy, in the sense of relating to everybody, talking to everybody, actually paying attention to them, looking them in the eye. Are you the person who walks past, the people who are cleaning the office and never says a word to them, or do you actually engage in conversation? That, I think that's critical for creating the right type of culture where everybody can thrive.
And we want everyone to thrive where we are. So let's keep going and finish out just the quick 7 diamond tools of how Fannie Mae Duncan in Colorado Springs was a thought leader, an entrepreneur, and just a way maker, basically, to quote one of my mentors, a way maker for people to thrive. So what does that look like? So check out his book. I'm always plugging his book. It's like I should get some royalties here, because I'm always talking about your book. And so what he says is perspective shifting and connecting with people from different demographics, just different walks of life. It actually increases your social brain network, which allows your brain to connect, to perspective shift, and to be more empathetic, right? And to in-group more people than out-group. And so if you're looking to have the advantage, you have to increase your vantage points. What does that look like? And so that's the perspective shifting gem. She was excellent at shifting perspectives, and you have to be if you're trying to serve multiple groups of people from different lives, lived experiences. So our second to last gem is authentic adaptation. And my example I'm giving here is, I started my career teaching elementary school students, and the concept is teaching, but the content is, I was teaching beginning music, and then I taught 3rd grade. So you're doing multiplication and nouns and verbs, right? Now I'm doing a lot of my teaching in corporate. The concept is still teaching, but now we're teaching empathy, emotional intelligence, even though I did that with the small ones too. Cultural competence, creative thinking, emotional regulation, and all of these leadership skills. And the thing is, I'm still authentically me. I need to adapt to who I'm trying to connect with, which means I need to be observant of their needs. I need to be curious to find out where they are, what their experiences are, and how I can connect with them. But I'm not changing who I am. I'm very interactive. I speak with my hands. I use manipulatives when I teach. I use a lot of metaphors. I do a lot of experiential metaphoric instruction, and I do a lot of dialogue. Everyone's talking. I'm not the only one talking to you for 2 hours, and there's too much text on the PowerPoint. That is not me. If you're looking for that type of training, don't come to me. If you're looking for training that is interactive and dialogues, a lot of self-awareness and a lot of self-reflection and discovery and fun, then I'm your person. And then our group of facilitators are your team for this training. So I use this gem to tell leaders, you're dealing with a lot of different people. You still need to know who you are and what your North Star is, but you still have to be able to adapt to connect with people who may be at a different growth point than where you are. There's a wonderful book that I have by the Heath brothers, Chip Heath and Dan Heath, called Made to Stick. That's what it's called. And he talks about the curse of knowledge. And we find this a lot, where you get people who are like professors or advanced in leadership, and they know a lot. So it's hard for them to connect for someone who's just like freshman, or someone who just onboarded last week, because they're so high in their knowledge that it's hard for their brain to shift and to adapt, to remember what it's like to be a freshman, or what it's like to be new to the company without knowing any of the procedures or the culture or whatever. And so great leaders know how to know who they are, but they also know how to adapt to make connections and bridges with those that they're trying to teach and to guide. So great leaders know how to synchronize brains, right? Brains that are not synchronized look like that, and then brains that are, and there's different ways to do this. And I mentioned a few. How do you get people to synchronize their brains and to have an experiential experience in order to connect with the teacher as a learner? So prismatic leaders. Fannie Mae, she was a prismatic leader. She knew how to be true to her goals while adapting to whether she was talking to the police chief and dealing with that or talking to her mentees. She mentored a lot of young students in entrepreneurship, made sure people understood these skills that a lot of people of color and a lot of women did not have access to at that time. She mentored, her family and had issues with the people who dropping off supplies for the restaurant. She just knew how to shift. Like, who am I talking to? How do I connect with them so they feel trust and we could make things happen. And so she did that so well. She was a bridge builder, right? There's a wonderful book called The Medici Effect, where the author says, innovation happens at the intersection of fields, disciplines, and cultures. There you have it. And I believe that statement. Innovation happens, right, at those bridge builders, right? Seth Godin talks about this as well, right? He uses the example of hair salon. Like hair salon is people who work in hair salons are like those bridge builders because they connect with people from all walks of life, and they have to shift quickly depending on who's in their chair. So it's true. Innovation happens for the people who are those bridge builders between fields, disciplines, and cultures. And for an example, my life, I'm in education and I'm deep in the neuroscience and entrepreneur, and I go to all these conferences that are outside of my normal field of study. So my brain is constantly making creative connections. I ask people, leaders, do you send your team members off to conferences? Is it just in their area? If they're marketing, are they just going to marketing conferences? Or do you sometimes send them to a financial meeting or operations or a plumbing meeting or arts experience, right? Like, are you allowing them to diversify their experiences so their subconscious can have different things to make those unique connections? Are you allowing them to build bridges? Because when you do that in their experiences, you do that in the brain, right? And creativity is all about integrating different ideas. So to review, I like to do my mini keynote every now and then, every 3 months, just to remind you all what we're talking about and why this is for the future of work. We have a creative growth mindset. We're also calling it a prismatic mindset. It's beyond you just growing. You're growing and you're setting the foundation for other people to grow as well. That's having a prismatic growth mindset, right? Open mind, open heart, being empathetic. Increase your observations, your cultural observations, and your creative observations. Be curious. Be curious, right? Be curious. That is really it. Be curious. Before we judge, be curious. There's a great quote by someone who says that. Shift perspective and take the perspectives of others, authentically adapt in various situations, and be that bridge builder. In Colorado Springs, there is a statue of Fannie Mae Duncan, Miss Fannie Mae Duncan in there, and they honored her and what she did for that city. And I honor her and what she did for our nation, what she did for me. And I didn't even know she existed before I got this keynote. But really, what she did for a lot of us to open down the doors, to bring people together, to use music, to unite people, and to make sure that everyone knew that they were welcome. This is her slightly before she passed away in 2005. And so I hope you allow, just different experiences, different types of people, just to encourage you, to inform you of new creative ideas, to share their story. If you're in a position of leadership, how do you allow people from different marginalized groups to a seat at the table, to share their experience, to really move the organization forward? What does that look like? How do you incorporate these gems in your life? Like Fannie Mae Duncan, she was a prismatic leader. She really made things happen. And it's an honor to honor her and allow me to share with you how she created a wonderful world. So don't forget, I have my books. They are on cafestrategies.com and JanineLefford.com. We also have our new book coming out, which I can't find the cover right now. It's called The Power of I Am. We have our book launch celebration March 16th in San Fernando Valley, north of Los Angeles. So if you're in the area, you want to come by, please send me a note. And we're also celebrating 10 years of Alumni 360. Ooh, that started me. And sorry, that's all off. But if you look at the poster to the left, save the date. We're looking at the Power of I Am book launch and Alumni 360, 10 years of the nonprofit, empowering these students with entrepreneurship skills, creative thinking skills, and life skills. And it's been amazing watching them grow. So we are going to X out of that. And I wanted to show this last video of Miss Fannie.
He says, I'm telling you one thing. If anybody come in there, I don't care if they're black, white, blue, purple, or yellow, as long as they're 21 years old, you serve. And I was wrong. And he said, you go and you run the place, and I'll help you stay there. He said, because you're doing a great job. And I had no more problems.
All right. So I show that towards the end because at the beginning she had issues with the chief of police, but then she was brilliant. She knew how to connect with people, and she knew how to get people on her side for the betterment of the community. And we're looking for leaders that are not leading through fear and coercion, but they're leading through inspiration and through growth. You know, they're leading from places that allow people to grow and allow people to really see the creative potential that they're harboring inside. And so I just wanted to share her work, Black History Month, but every month we are learning from all types of people, but especially for our hidden figures, our unseen and silenced voices, that we need to bring them out to the forefront, because people need to see people like Fannie Mae. I needed to see people like Fannie Mae Duncan because the work I'm doing, you know, I've trademarked these terms. I am really just making a new path and breaking down some doors with this statement that says intercultural creativity, cultural awareness impacts creative thinking, neurosomatic creativity. Us understanding our brain, our mind, and our body connection influences the way we come and show up creatively. So what does that mean? And also prismatic leadership. That is a trademark term. What does it mean to be a prism? To really show the different colors that's hidden beneath the light. And so when you're working with someone who is breaking down doors, bringing up new terms, paving the way for the thousands behind them to come through, it's good to learn of other people who did the same thing as well. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed your long Diamond Mentor moment. These are normally like 10 to 15 minutes long, but today was a special time to honor Mrs. Fannie Mae Duncan and the work that she did. Go check out cafestrategies.com. Where is that? Yes, go check out the podcast, check out the books. If your company is in need of any interactive, fun, yet effective leadership and inclusion training, we are your team, and we will see you next time. Don't forget to live a very creative and inclusive